Look to this day, for it is the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty, for yesterday is but a dream and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Come, let us worship together.
Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts. Take our breath and let our voices sing our part. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art.
Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. My name is Nathan. I'm your senior minister. This service today is led by Reverend Eric Posa, your interim minister. Glad to be with you today. If you are a visitor, we are glad that you are here. You can get on our email list. That is the way to find out more about this church. We are in the process of figuring out how to safely reopen. Keep your eyes out for updates on that coming very soon. That's all I got. Glad you're with us. Welcome to worship.
In religious community, we share our joys and our triumphs, our sorrows and our broken places. In this circle of care, we make space for the complexity of life, the myriad experiences that bless and break our hearts. The truth of human experience dictates that on any given day, we each come to the table with hearts in different places. It is especially so on this day, invented to honor women who nurture. And so, in this circle of care, we honor the truth that mothering is not and never will be quantified in one single description. Mothering can be elusive or infuriating, fulfilling or confusing, commonplace or triumphant. It exists in the everyday experiences of each person. There is no human being that is not connected to or disconnected from a mother. And so we honor the complexity of experience, writ large in flowered platitudes, but here in this space laid bare, honoring the truth in each of our hearts. There is room for all in this circle. If you have carried a child or children, whether or not they came to be born, we see you. If you have fervently wished to do so, and circumstances of fate made it impossible, we see you. If you love children we cannot see, whether because of death or estrangement, we see you. If you never wanted to be a mother, we see you. If you are happy to mother other people's children as an educator, an auntie, or a special friend, we see you. If your mother hurt you physically or emotionally, we see you. If you had no mother at all, we see you. If your mother is or was your best friend, we see you. If your gender says you are not a mother, and yet you take on the role of nurturer, we see you. If you wonder whether your mothering has been enough, we see you. And if yours is a different truth altogether, we honor your unspoken story. There is room for all in this circle.
Remember that you can still sign up to place stones for the COVID memorial. We want to have a stone for every person who died from this terrible virus in America. We don't have the stones for everyone in the world. But if you have not yet done it, please do it. It's a really moving experience for those who have. This ritual we'd normally do in person, but for last year we've been doing it over the computer. So I invite you to type your stones in your chat. I will place them in absentia. I now invite those who wish to come forward as we place stones. If you have a chalice at home, now's the time to light it. I invite you to stay with me. With hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love.
Mothering is not and never will be quantified in one single descriptor. Mothering can be elusive or infuriating, fulfilling or confusing, commonplace or triumphant. I so appreciate Reverend Lisa Bovey-Kemper's words on this Mother's Day that speak to the complexity of the day. And it's a day which I'll freely admit I have struggled with in my own ministry. I'm one whose relationship with his own mother was quite fraught for multiple reasons. And though she did pass away a few years ago, I still struggle sometimes to find the joy that many others find in this day, as I also recognize that others still have similar struggles as mine, and some have very different struggles than mine with Mother's Day, with the celebration of motherhood. And I'm aware, at least in the broad or abstract sense, that those who live on the margins of our societal norms and values marginalized by their identity, people of color, LGBTQ plus people, immigrants to this country, whether documented or not, etc., are people whose own experiences with motherhood develops in widely differing social contexts than my own, and it comes to mean something different, mothering, when the context does differ so widely. I'm reminded by some of these stories, as feminists have told us for decades, that the personal is political, that our personal engagement with life, the personal engagement with life of those who live on the margins, for example, can be very different from mine and lead to very different political conclusions and connotations. The converse is true as well. The political is also personal. And the socio-political aspects of our lives have such an impact on what it means to live our lives individually, including what it means to mother and to be mothered. Though, as a white man, I can only know this in secondhand, by secondhand. I have been fortunate over the years to get to know a few people whose stories illustrate the very different meaning that motherhood can have, that mothering and being mothered has for people that differ so widely, be it from my personal, somewhat negative experience or the fairly positive experience of many of the people in my community with whom I grew up. Today's worship will offer a few of these stories. The other parts of today's sermon, if you will not be so much a direct progression, but each will offer a separate reflection on someone that I've been blessed to know in my own life, and something about what their experience with motherhood tells us about how issues of society, of politics, even of justice, can impact what it means to be a mother. And we'll say more about these shortly.
Come Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to learn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each learning after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a General Congress of Women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace.
Would you join me in a moment of prayer and reflection? The God that we know and we see love and kindness that we can describe as Mother, be with us on this day. Hold all those who feel loved, all those who feel estranged, all those for whom today is a complicated day or a joyful day. All those for whom today reminds them that they've lost justice or lost connection. And hold this congregation as we try to find a way back together safely. Hold the people of this city and this state and this country and this world. Help us make decisions and engage with each other in ways that make us healthier, make the world more just and more compassionate. Amen.
It's always a blessing when a child is born into a church community, and a real joy for the congregation, but I never saw it quite as literally play out as I did just about a year and a half ago. This was at the UU Church in Boulder, Colorado. The year before I arrived here in Baton Rouge, I served as their interim minister. And this was a congregation that had voted a couple of years earlier to become a sanctuary congregation, to accept into the protection of the church's sanctuary a person or family in the immigrant community who was facing deportation or other legal challenges from our, frankly, unjust and broken system of legal immigration here in the U.S. And one such person was Ingrid Ensalada La Torre. Ingrid had moved as a teenager to this country from Peru, along with her family, brought here by her family, and had continued to thrive and grow her family, but was now facing deportation because of being undocumented. And so dealing with the reality of likely deportation and separation from her two young sons, she instead chose to keep her family together by moving herself and her two young sons into the church building, living there in sanctuary, and had been there a year and a half already when I arrived. Her partner did not move into the church with her, but he stayed in the area, living just north of Denver and continuing to work and to support the family economically. But within the sanctuary of the church, Ingrid continued not only to fight her legal battles, to keep present in the U.S. and stay with her family, but she continued to live her life, live her dreams, as well she should have done, and that included expanding her family. When I arrived, she was 7 months pregnant with her third child, who was born in September of 2019. I'm pleased to say a happy and healthy baby girl. Baby Elizabeth was her name, Ingrid's first daughter. And what was striking and attention-getting is that because of the legal risks that she would have faced had she left the church, even to seek medical care, medical support for the birth, she made the choice, the very understandable choice, to stay put. She gave birth to her baby inside the church building, in the same room where that had been designated and reserved as the family's room, there in the church building. It was on a Monday evening when she gave birth, and though I was not in the building that day, it was my day off, I learned the next day that not only the church administrator, the congregational administrator, but even one of the church's small groups, what we here at UCBR would call a branches group, were all present in the building that day and could hear Ingrid in labor from across the fellowship hall where her room was. The church, though, welcomed Elizabeth with open arms, and they embraced the family. So many people stepped forward to volunteer, to, in some cases, take the boys to school or to activities so that Ingrid could focus on her daughter, her newborn, or to watch over the newborn for a while, just to give Ingrid a bit of a rest. Even as she continued to fight her legal battle, she had some successes, some things turned around for the better for her a couple of months later, but then the pandemic and the lockdown hit. And it slowed down all legal proceedings in the immigration system. And so since her case has not progressed, I'm sad, though also relieved to say that she's still living in the church to this day, having been there over 3 years now, alongside all 3 of her children. What I find most striking is that this church, which had so reached out to this family, was giving itself an education that, frankly, I suspect most of us in the church needed, and I'll freely include myself in that, to learn of the challenges that so many in our society face simply to keep their families together. This mother fighting to stay beside her children, to stay in the same country as her children, showed all of us that motherhood can and does so often, not always, but so often, as in her case, provide well springs of strength to continue the battle, to continue facing the struggles, the challenges ahead. Her resilience was remarkable, sometimes uncomfortable to see, because the challenges she faced were so great. And that church stayed and stood beside her in positive ways through it. And it was an honor to see a mother care so fiercely for her children. It's something I'll always remember. I'll speak about another approach to another dynamic of motherhood coming up soon.
when you're far away, when you feel alone, when the whole world has betrayed you, I will be your home. When you're far away, when you feel alone, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when you feel alone, when you feel alone, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when you feel alone, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, I will be your
Something beyond anything I have ever understood drove Mabel Jones to an exceptional life. She went to college on full scholarship. She went to med school at Louisiana State University. She served in the Navy. She took up radiology. She did not then know any other Black radiologists. I assumed that this would have been hard on her, but she was insulted by the assumption. She called her son Rocky in honor of her grandfather who went by Rock. She said that he once dressed himself in a suit and tie, got down on one knee, and sang 3 times a lady to her. She said that he'd gone to private schools his entire life, but he made friends wherever he went, in Louisiana and later in Texas. I asked her how his friends' parents treated her. By then, I was the chief of radiology at the local hospital, she said, and so they treated me with respect. She said this with no love in her eye, coldly, as though she were explaining a mathematical function.
I've spoken before about my friend Prince Jones and the death that he faced at the hands of a police officer over 20 years ago now, almost 21 years. I only had opportunity one time to meet Prince's mother. It was at the graduation ceremony for Prince from the Academy for Students Gifted in Mathematics and Sciences that he attended at my university, University of North Texas. And it was just a couple of months before Prince moved to Washington, D.C., to the D.C. area to attend Howard University, where he met, as a college classmate, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who wrote about him so incredibly in his book, Between the World and Me. Though the description that Coates gives of his encounter with Dr. Jones does match my own impressions as well, even though our meetings were decades apart. And I'm struck by what it meant for Mabel Jones, not only to advance in her profession as a Black woman, but also simultaneously to be mother as a Black woman to a Black child, and who grew to be a young Black man and sadly was not allowed to grow past that point. Prince was, as she described and as I experienced, an incredibly gregarious young person. He would make friends with so many people. I have seen countless remembrances of him from his classmates at the academy that he attended that attest to that fact clearly. And I wonder how much of that was due to the experience of being raised by a woman born into poverty, who then went on to study medicine just across town from here at LSU, and to become the first Black radiologist that even she herself had ever met. She met no one who was Black doing the work she chose until she herself was doing it. And at the same time, having become a radiologist, she was also raising her son. As a young Black man in mostly white neighborhoods and communities, facing perhaps initially some awkwardness from some of the other families, mostly white families, of course, but also being granted by many of them a cachet that perhaps not many other Black people would, in her position, have experienced because of her profession. Being a prominent doctor made an impact on people that not all Black people have the opportunity in this racist society to benefit from. I can only know in the abstract and very imperfectly what her experience was like as a white man. That's not anywhere close to an experience I've have seen only secondhand and indirectly. But the pain that anyone experiences at the death of their own child, which may well be just about the height of unexpected pain for anyone, certainly unwanted pain. And combine that with all of the dynamics that come with being Black in America, gives, to me, a lens on what it must have meant to her to be a mother of a young Black man, worrying about the challenges he would face and having to face the consequences of the racism of our society in the bitterest way possible, the bitterest way that I at least can imagine. Motherhood can be such harrowing, heartbreaking experience for so many people. And at the same time, I will always be grateful to Dr. Jones for the young man that she raised, who I was, for too brief of a time, proud to call my friend. I'll offer one more hopeful, in fact, reflection on motherhood shortly.
All right, so we've come to the offering time of the service. We got an extra couple of minutes, so I'm going to wait while you go get whatever extra device you use, your wallet, maybe wherever you keep your credit card if you don't have it in your brain, the number in your brain. You got it yet? Kathy's also going to type into the chat all of the ways that you can give. I mean, I know you're supposed to use the offering music for this part, but the music's really good, and I like the video, and so I know if you're like me, you're not going to do it then. So go ahead and get everything ready now. I know there's about 70 people watching this right now. Hopefully this will be such a great service that millions are going to watch it later, so this will be, the numbers will be off. But I'd like for you 70 to give to the offering, but also to pick some organization that you think your mother would want you to give money to. Or if you have a strained relationship with your mother, pick some organization she would not like you to give money to, but you would feel good giving money to. And so the offering music, it's about 2 minutes, right? So you got 2 minutes to go to our website, make a gift, and go to whatever the other website is and make a gift. Because I gave you that extra time to get your cards ready. All right. The morning's offering will now be very, very generously given and received.
They were not sure if they would be able to adopt. My friends had been together as a couple for many years, two women who were a vital part of my home church at the time. This is right around the time that I was in my early days of seminary, before I came here as intern. And as a lesbian couple in the state of Texas over 20 years ago, there were certainly challenges to adopting children, all too sadly and none too surprisingly. But they were able to become foster parents and brought into their care one infant boy who was in desperate need of care, because even from the first night of his life, the challenges he faced were so incredible. His biological mother had, in her estimation, no means at her disposal to raise a child. So as a poor, drug-addicted young woman, when she found herself pregnant, she hid her pregnancy for the entirety of the pregnancy and gave birth to her baby son alone in her own room, and immediately abandoned the child, actually left it, I'm sad to say, in a dumpster. Now, the good news is that there was a passerby to that dumpster not too long afterwards who discovered the baby, heard it, and was able to rescue the young boy. But by that point, he'd already been exposed to the elements, had suffered oxygen deprivation, and both of those resulted in developmental disabilities that would be part of that person's life throughout its life. And yet, within just a few weeks of his birth, he was in the care of my two friends. And with some searching, they were able to find a sympathetic judge who would approve the adoption. Sadly, they had to travel from Denton, Texas, north of Dallas and Fort Worth, to San Antonio. It's a 300-mile drive to find the judge and appear in court. And if that wasn't bad enough, the date they were set to appear in court to finalize the adoption was September 11th, 2001. So the couple woke up that morning with their baby, hopefully soon to be son, not knowing if the court would even be open, as so many things closed that day of the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Fortunately, the court did stay open, at least long enough for the judge to process, for them to appear before this judge who did process the adoption, allowing the child to legally become their son. And he did face challenges throughout his life, and he continues to. He's 19 years old now, but he has thrived under their care and their love. Even through their separation some years later, but the two continued to co-parent the boy and continue to this day. He still lives with one of them who recently retired from her job at a university. And the challenges that they faced as lesbians facing societal homophobic attitudes to a same-sex couple raising a child, particularly a child of a different sex than they themselves were. Nonetheless, they were such good parents, have remained such good parents to him. And as I look at all of these stories of the lesbian couple from my church, of the immigrant woman at the church I served, at the mother of my late friend from college, both of whom were Black, I am struck that all of their lives and all of their experiences as mothers were indeed impacted by the societal challenges that our oppressive society has foisted on them. And through that oppression, all of these women found ways to be mothers to wonderful people, wonderful young people, and to help their children grow and thrive beautifully. We know not everyone has that experience. And yet we long for the day in which it will be true for all. And it's in that spirit I say, so may it be for us all on this Mother's Day, on future Mother's Days. Amen.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us.
Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace, go in love. Amen.
When you're far away, when you feel alone, when your world has changed, when your world has changed, when your world has changed, when you feel alone, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when you feel alone, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, when your world has betrayed you, I will be your